beating around the bush, serious drought.
Yeah, there is no beating around the bush. I mean, I don't want to wave a banner here, but there's been plenty of warnings about this. I mean, we personally have been warning about this for a long time. I mean, all the symptoms have been there for several months now, and it is, as everybody said, really starting to bite. We're getting into December. Everything sort of stacked up that it was going to be the December period that would really start to hurt, and it is starting to hurt. I mean, we are really we're struggling with an absolute lack of rainfall more than anything else. If you look at the crop demands, we're sort of in the upper above average type demands. We haven't got extreme demands, so we're not getting a week full of sort of 25 to 35 type degrees with the wind blowing. We're getting a mixture of days. I mean, all over New Zealand we're getting these mixtures of days, especially along the east coast. We're getting some really warm northwesterly sort of days and some quite strong winds when your demands are going to be high. So you're going to push the 5.5 to 6 millimetres a day on those days, and then we're sort of slipping back into this sort of northeasterly weather. Occasional southerly still comes through, and that sort of lowers everything. And cloud cover's great; it drops demand. But the big issue is that we're just not getting any rain. I mean, there is just no rain coming, and it always amazes me when you when you listen to forecasts about the fact that there's a big nor'westerly system coming on the west coast, and there'll be some spillover, and Canterbury might get a few millimetres. Dreamers.
Yeah. But at least the rivers were starting to get cloudy.
Well, they were. I flew back over the rivers recently, and the Rakaia was relatively cloudy. Not big though. I mean, we're not getting those big northwest events down the major rivers. So we're not getting them down the South Island rivers. We're not getting them down those the eastern rivers for example, the Wairarapa. And into Hawke's Bay, we're not getting those systems that are raising the water levels in those rivers. So we really are along the east coast of both islands now, really looking at a very serious situation.
Tony, is it a dumb suggestion to irrigate at night so there's less evapotranspiration?
No, look, evaporation is a really small loss to the whole system. Evaporative losses when you irrigate are only about 3 to 4% of what you're actually applying.
So it is a dumb question.
No, it's not a dumb question, but it's a question that everybody asks or everybody raises. People see irrigators operating during the day when it's warm and it's hot, and they go, "Oh, look at all that water that could be evaporating," and it's exactly that. It could be evaporating. It takes 5 times the amount of energy to raise a drop of water or a cubic metre of water, for example, 1 degree than it does to raise the same volume of air, 1 degree. So to take water from, generally our groundwater in particular is of the order of 11 or 12 degrees C, to get it to the point that it could actually evaporate before it hits the ground from maybe 2 or 3 metres above the ground is a near impossibility.
Right.
The systems that we do need to have some concerns about, and everybody will have seen them running, are the high pressure guns. Now, when you try and squirt water into the wind from a high pressure gun, then you break up the droplet sizes. So suddenly you have very small droplet sizes instead of large droplet sizes, and a higher proportion of that water will evaporate. But it's the issue of it not landing where you want it to land that is the big inefficiency, if you want to call it, in irrigation. When it's windy, except for centre pivots and big linear irrigators, we have water that doesn't end up at the right place. It just doesn't end up on target, basically. So evaporations are pretty low, of very low concern.
Centre pivots come into their own, don't they?
Oh, under those circumstances, under windy circumstances, centre pivots or the big linear moves, which are the same device as a centre pivot, except it runs backwards and forwards in a straight line, not round and round in a circle. The sprinkler technology on those irrigation systems have been designed for wind fighting, have been designed so that we have large droplet sizes and we get great uniformity and we get very few losses. So the water ends up where you want it to go.
Tony, are you expecting a lot more people to try to get into irrigation because we've had drought after drought?
Look, everybody on, particularly in the eastern parts of both of our islands, and certainly some of the other parts, for example, in the Waikato and Bay of Plenty, everybody wants to get into irrigation. We know that if you can apply water in any of those climates, that there is a payback. The biggest issue is now water supply. In most areas, groundwater is effectively fully allocated. Most of our rivers have all their water fully allocated. And the only source of water is to actually store high flows. And that is becoming increasingly more expensive to do. So if you look at schemes like the Ruataniwha scheme in the North Island, if you look at the Huranui scheme here in the South Island, you even look at parts of the Central Plains Water Scheme, the cost of that water now is nearly twice what it was. Central Plains, for example, is nearly twice what it started out to be. So, stage 2 and 3 are proportionately more expensive to get involved in with the water. And it's, can you make that water, which might cost you $5,000 or $6,000 a hectare to buy into, can you make that $5,000 or $6,000 a hectare pay? And right now, you can't make it pay with dairying because the payout's probably only going to be about $450 or $460. Nobody's writing home about the price of wheat or barley, which are other big crops. There's a limit to the number of specialty seeds that you can grow, which are high risk, high return, sure, but you can't have the whole of the Canterbury Plains in those. That's just not conceivable.
So do your homework.
So you have to do your homework, and you have to see whether or not you can make that water pay. But sure, there are more and more farmers that want to get into irrigation.
Tony, thank you very much indeed.